Hey, Expedite, you're now rocking with your boy KOR XKLL, the last son of planet Xbox, and you're listening to Super Podshots. Today, man, this it's been a long week. I took a slight hiatus, obviously, just to try to play a few games and things like that is something that I do, obviously, as a gamer. I got my hands on the division and I've been really, really impressed with it. I always talked about the division. I even showed some gameplay highlights of it during the beta, and I've always spoken highly of it. And now that I finally got a chance to play the entire game in its entirety and really get a feel for the game, I must say it's very addicting. I think the biggest issue with the division, it seems currently for me, is probably the in-game content and how now it's becoming a bit repetitive. Dark Zone is fun, but Dark Zone is only fun if you're in a group. It sucks when you may have some potential goodies and then suddenly an entire squad turns on you, shoots you, and takes your stuff. And the thing that really sucks even more is the amount of things that you lose at such a crucial time. Anything from, money to, Dark Zone keys to experience points, and it literally sets you back. It really is terrible. So unless you are in a large group or you have some really powerful weapons and some really powerful defense and armor and health, it sucks because it's like you go in there to go get the great loot and walk out of there with some really potential findings only to lose it to 2 or 3 guys who decide to light you up and take your stuff. So you definitely want to team up. Overall, I gave the game 8.5 out of 10. Now, I saw IGN scored. I know a lot of people were losing their minds over the IGN score. The IGN gave it like a 6.7. And I didn't read the review. I don't know how they judged it or how they based it. I think that reviewers are too critical. I think games should be based on whether they're enjoyable, whether they're playable, and whether the ending content or the majority of the content in a game is worth the purchase. When you play a game like The Division and you first really get into the game, surprisingly, for a game that's slightly, I won't say it's an MMO because it's not. It's not an MMO per se. But I think a lot of people compare it to Destiny because it's similar in the where you're in this world that can be shared. You can play the entire game co-op, grouped up as a team. It's not as if you'll find other players in your group or in your team and they are out there just doing their own thing. Mainly, you'll see people, circulating around on the map. You can see little orange balls and things like that. And those are your friends or those are people who are on the same server as you. Ubisoft has come up with this thing called motion. What is it called? Motion multiplayer or something like that, or something of the like. And I think it's super innovative. Like, no one's really realizing what Ubisoft has done. And for all the slack Ubisoft has gotten, they have really, in my opinion, hit it out the park with The Division. They've done a great job. I feel like they took everything and a lot of criticism for a lot of things that they've done and really did an excellent job with, with The Division. So I look at the game and I say to myself, seeing people on the map, people instantaneously joining you, being able to be in a situation where you may need help going to a particular, I guess you could say, mission and getting multiplayer people with you just for that particular mission, and then just ending the group after the match is excellent. I think it's great. In my opinion, the multiplayer alone deserves at least an 8. Deserves an 8 at least. And again, what game out there gave you such a decent story? Like, the way they told the story in The Division was really, really well done. The voice acting is actually really, really good. And it's a really good game. I just don't see how someone can base a game's score on, maybe the mechanics or some things that may be missing, knowing that this game will probably have a pretty significant amount of content coming up in the next couple of months. I spent at least 48 hours playing the game, like literally no sleep. Probably maybe 2 or 3 hours of sleep. And I was really hooked on it. So I really enjoyed the game a lot. I recommend it for anybody who's interested in picking up the game. As I always say, it's an excellent game, a really cool game to team up with. And I've had people join me, just, random people on my friends list, people who know me from Tech Podcasts, my buddies in general, the clan. It's a really great game. I recommend it. I wouldn't be discouraged about anything like that. And you have such a large variety of guns. I think there's over like 125 weapons in the game, from, marksman rifles to assault rifles, LMGs. You have all different types of grenades. They give you this bonus, type of bullets from, flame fire. It's, not explosion. What are they called? I want to say explosive rounds and inflammatory rounds. There you go. So, you get different types of things. You get different types of grenades. It's really, really fun. And lately, I just been grinding, man. I'm like doing massive damage now. Finally getting my high-end gear in place, starting to get my high-end weapons in place. So it's really fun. And I've been playing it every night. Today is the only day I haven't really touched the game yet. And I probably will get on after the show. But I just want to touch on the Division for a bit because I feel like it's a really good game, and I would hate to see a good game like that get overlooked or bypassed because of a review score. I think people should really try the games for themselves, play the games for themselves, and just determine whether the game is fun to you. I think we lose a lot when we look at review scores and don't give certain games a chance, and that's how developers get hurt. Because people don't even play the game, and then it's like, oh, the game is horrible. Now, it's funny because I played recently the Homefront beta, and I spoke about this last time, and the beta was terrible. Honestly, it really was. But yet, for some odd reason, Deep Silver feels like the game that we get will be completely different from what they gave us. Like, I'm not understanding how that's even possible. If you give someone a beta, right, and I play the beta, and the game is horrendous, and then you tell me in an article a few days later, oh, no, the game is going to be so amazing. I don't see how, unless you're scrapping that game, taking another 2 years to completely overhaul the engine, because the problem isn't the gameplay, it's the engine. It's clearly the engine or whatever they're using, because the player models, the way they move, it's just, it's so robotic. It's not even like fluid. The game overall just feels just cheap. And I hate to say that. I don't want to rip developers. I just feel like this game has been in limbo for such a long time, and it's being probably passed from developer to developer. I don't see how the game is going to turn out good. I mean, obviously, I can be wrong. I can't dictate the future. I know nothing about Homefront Revolution or what direction it could go in. But from what I play, unless they come out with another beta sometime soon that's completely different from what I originally played, I don't see that game coming out and making a mark on anything. The first game was so fluid. It was such a good first-person shooter. A lot of people slept on that game, and I hope that game becomes backwards compatible, and that people get a chance to play the first one. But this one that they put out, nah, bro. It's not what you think it is, and I really hope if it is different that they work really hard on it. So now that I got that out the way, Microsoft has come out this week and spoken about crossplay and how they have now implemented the ability to allow this crossplay feature to not only cross Xbox One and PC, but to cross networks from Xbox to PC to PlayStation to Nintendo's whatever consoles they coming out with. And you know something? I have to touch on the news about the NX today. I have to touch on it. I know this is an Xbox show, people, but hey, you know how it is, man. I'm a true Xbonite. I'm not an Xbot. So I have to touch on Nintendo today and give my thoughts on some of the things that I saw that leaked with Nintendo's controller and their direction. And I'll get on that in a few. But Microsoft implementing crossplay is a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a big deal in the fact that unlike PC to PlayStation or Xbox to PC, we're talking about Microsoft implementing a way that allows developers to make games that will work with Xbox versus PlayStation. This is big. This is big. Now, I've seen all of the talk about all the fanboys saying how Microsoft needs it to improve their install base for multiplayer games and all these things like that. Since when? Since when? Microsoft is the multiplayer console. If anybody needs improvement in the multiplayer space, it's the rival consoles. So, I mean, I'm not trying to take shots. I'm just keeping it 100. You know, that's what Xbox is all about. It's all about Xbox Live and multiplayer. But at the same time, having a larger install base keeps games relevant for longer periods of time. Could you imagine having crossplay with Titanfall, or even having, well, not Titanfall, but Titanfall 2, even having crossplay with games like NBA Live, Madden, FIFA? Rocket League being the first one is really the game changer. This is really going to make Rocket League a part of history. Rocket League have just made themselves a part of video game history in this regard. And it's a big shout out to them, not only because Rocket League is going to be one of the first games to do cross play network wise, but also it's an indie game. It's not even like it's a AAA title. It's not even like it was made by somebody like Activision or EA or Microsoft or Sony. It's a small indie title that boomed on PlayStation, exploded on Xbox, and is about to take over the world by storm when it comes to this network play between Xbox, PC, and PlayStation. This is unprecedented. This is just absolutely amazing. It really is. Now, personally, I haven't purchased the game yet. I'm going to pick it up, but I haven't picked up the game yet. For all intents and purposes, my understanding is that this game is really, really, really good, and I definitely want to get a chance to play it. I'm just swamped with so many AAA games. Remember, I was playing Far Cry. Now I'm on The Division. Quantum Break comes out next month. I don't know when I get a chance to play it, but I will play it and definitely get an opportunity to see what all the fuss is about. But overall, the game itself is making all types of noise. And the fact that it will now have the ability and be the first game to have network crossplay, it's made its mark. It has put itself in a position in history to be an innovative game and be the first game to ever have network crossplay, and it will always be remembered for that. So people must acknowledge Rocket League as an amazing title, a game-changing title, and an industry-changing title. Microsoft obviously is not innovating in the fact that they're creating crossplay. People don't want to acknowledge that Microsoft is innovating in the fact that they're opening their networks to network play. Now, what was funny is that as I read the comments in some of the comment sections on some of the news that was, going through, I guess you could say, the community and the video game industry, you see these comments about how, oh no, Sony won't have an issue opening up their network, and they've always been open to crossplay. And yet we have Yoshida himself talking about red tape and policy. Suddenly things have changed. Suddenly it's not exactly what people had all hoped and planned for. Now Microsoft is starting to open up their policies and be a little bit more free to allowing these things to happen. And I know a lot of Xbox guys out there fear that Microsoft is just going into this services multi-platform type, I guess you could say, design, but they're not. They aren't. What they're doing is they're expanding the gaming space. What they're trying to do is show you that you can play on any Windows 10 device, including Xbox or PC. You can play on a game that even may have a smaller, I guess you could say it may not be as big on one particular console. However, the install base will be triple the size because you have PC and PlayStation involved. And then to top it all off, you also have those console exclusives that you can only play if you're a console gamer on the Xbox One. Now, there's something that I want to talk about upgradable hardware-wise, and I'll get to that after I talk about a few other things. But it goes right back to something that Phil had spoken about. And the more news that comes out, the more I feel I need to address some of the things that I spoke about and even backtrack a little bit because things are starting to become a little bit more clearer. But in the end, this all goes right back to the original idea that network play and what Microsoft is trying to do overall as a whole is very, very promising. And software is king. We all know that. Hardware is just a means to play games. It's not to say that hardware can't make you money, but if you're basing your company on making hardware, that's not going to work. Nintendo, because they sell their hardware at such a cheap price, and because their consoles never really rival power-wise the newer versions of like the Xboxes and PlayStations, they're really able to make a profit on their console because their consoles are cheap. Not as far as the quality that they're putting out, but just because the console overall isn't a out of this world beast machine. They're really all about gaming. They're focusing on the games. They're not worried about the hardware. I don't know how the NX is going to be. Rumor has it is that the NX in itself will just probably be almost as good as the Xbox One. Not better than the Xbox One, not better than the PlayStation, and nowhere near PC. However, I think that that's a great change for them if that was to be true, because obviously people have issues with the Wii U and no third-party support. So we'll see how that pans out. But again, I have to sit here and really look at what Microsoft is doing cross-play-wise and how big this is, and just acknowledge that they're making an effort. They really are, to really blow up install bases. When games die down over time, there were always dedicated fans that always played those games. And if you can have the people who are dedicated to playing those games for many, many years because they're cult games to them, then those people will now have the ability to continue that playing with the PC crowd and the Nintendo crowd and the Sony crowd, if that is allowed. I could imagine the rivalries that will happen now. Like, this is insane. And I said it before. Listen, PlayStation guys, if you're out there listening, first of all, thank you. Second of all, much respect, because this is an Xbox channel and you acknowledge that it is a really good one, and I appreciate it. But there's no way that you guys are beating the Xbox crowd in anything competitive, except for maybe fighting games, Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat. I give you that, because I even bought Street Fighter for my PS3 over the Xbox, because the PS3 controller, the digital crosspad was just much better on the PlayStation 3 than it was for the 360. So I definitely picked up Street Fighter. I think it was 4, right? Yeah, Street Fighter 4 on the PS3, and I loved it. I really did. I really enjoyed the game. It was great. But overall, you look at Madden, all those years that Microsoft guys had Madden, and 2K. 2K is big in the Xbox crowd. Sports titles, shooters. I don't know how many years the Xbox crowd has had, Call of Duty and as the forefront game for the platform. Battlefield. There's just a lot of games, and the way the controller's designed is just really built well for competitive gaming. I just think the Xbox crowd really knows what they're doing when it comes to competitive games. You always think about multiplayer. You always think about Xbox Live and why it's like so important to a lot of Xbox fans, and why when one little thing goes crazy, we lose our minds over it, because of the simple fact it's just something we're not used to. It's one thing when you're used to it, there's not much to complain about. But when you're not used to it, it's like, the end of the world. So, it's going to be very interesting. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm pretty sure a lot of Xbox guys who were on 360 went over to PS4. So there will be competition. Absolutely be competition. But the hardcore guys who stay with Xbox, those dudes, man, you got to watch out for them, including myself, because I'm a beast. Don't get it twisted. You don't want to see me on these games, bro. You don't. I put in work. But anyway, man, I'm enjoying myself. I'm having a good time. Microsoft is doing some awesome things. I think gaming as a whole is doing some awesome things. A lot of great games coming out soon. And man, it's just so much to discuss. So with crossplay finally on the board, it's up to Sony to cut through their red tape to figure out a way to make this happen. I do expect to see Final Fantasy 14 on the Xbox One, which I'm very happy for, because I've always wanted to play that game. Now, I don't know how Final Fantasy 14 works. I'm not paying monthly for anything. Okay, if it's not free to play, I'm not playing it. Now, I will buy a game like Elder Scrolls and play the game to death. And if I decide that I want to get the DLC, if I want to pay monthly for the next expansion, then maybe I'll think about that. But if it's got to be like $11.99 a month, it ain't happening. It's not happening. I'm not doing it. Is to me, paying monthly for a game as a console gamer. I'm not a PC gamer. PC guys can do that. Online is free. All you're doing is buying the games. The games mostly are cheap. I'm not doing that. I'm on Xbox. Everything that we do, we pay for. So I'm definitely not going to be paying the online month and then for the year for Xbox. Plus, I have to pay for my internet as well. That's insane. I'm not doing that. But if it's free to play, I'll pick it up. And if you give me the option to choose whatever, I'll play it. But I really hope if it is monthly, it's cheap, and I'll try it for I'll buy a 3-month pack, see how I feel. If it's like $5 a month or $7 a month. So we'll see how that works out. But in the end, man, I think crossplay wise, people have to recognize that it's not about Microsoft servers, it's not about Sony servers. These games are going to be running third party. It will be on third-party servers. So worrying about, Microsoft, will PlayStation be able to have Azure? Will they run on it? And things like that. No one's talking about first-party titles. We're talking about third-party games. We're talking about games like Overwatch, which could come to Xbox One and be on PlayStation as well. That would just run from Activision servers. Madden and EA and Call of Duty, all those games would run from third-party servers. All they're doing is basically putting all the Xbox guys in one room and putting all the PlayStation guys in one room and putting all the PC guys in one room. And we're all just smashed together on this one particular server playing against each other. I don't know how the PC crowd will work. I'm pretty sure there'll be options for keyboard and mouse. And then once Microsoft implements a mouse function on the Xbox, if you want to join that crowd to play against keyboard and mouse, I'm sure you'll be able to do so. But I think if you're a console gamer, why would you play with PC and mouse? See, there's a lot of things that's baffling to me when it comes to the whole PC Xbox thing, because there's obviously reasons why you want keyboard and mouse, whether it's a strategy game, if that's what you're into. A game like Halo Wars, which was at one point exclusive, keyboard and mouse kind of made sense if you were a PC guy. But as a console guy, we don't do keyboard and mouse. So why all of a sudden would we start doing it now? We're going to constantly play with controllers. So like I said before, it's the same way where it's like you had people all hyped up about Quantum Break and you getting a free copy for Windows 10. I don't understand how that appeals to the Xbox gamer. It doesn't. If you're an Xbox gamer, you're a console gamer, you're going to be playing that entire game on the Xbox. You're not suddenly going to hop on your PC because, first of all, you're probably not going to have a PC to run it based on those specs. And second of all, it only works really if you are on the go. And I think that's what's important. If I'm in another state or if I'm in another country and I want to play the game, then yeah, I can load the game up on the PC if the PC can run it, if it can run it at the minimum specs, and I can actually play the game and continue with cross saves from where I left off from back home. So I think that's a great option for the Xbox gamer, but overall, I don't see Xbox guys suddenly going to PC to play Quantum Break. It's a cool incentive. It really is a cool incentive. But to me, it's not mind-blowing. Like, oh, my God, I have to get the game because PC. Now, if you're a PC guy, it's different if you plan on getting an Xbox. But at this point, with all the games heading to PC, what's the point of getting an Xbox? If you're a PC guy, I just want you guys to go out there and buy the games to support the games. Microsoft came out early on this week and talked about some of the things they'll be talking about at GDC. And one of the big things they spoke about was also how they're going to be making changes to Windows and allowing VSync to be turned off and allowing a lot of different things that people had asked for. They're listening and they're doing it. So, I said this before, the PC crowd is not used to what Microsoft does like the Xbox crowd, because we know that they listen to us. We know about the changes and things that they're doing because they listen to us. PC gamers don't realize that because they are not in the same position as Xbox gamers. And now that they're seeing that they're listening and they're going to be implementing these changes, hopefully that crowd will kind of, put his pitchforks and fire away and recognize that they are making a big effort to appease the PC crowd and stuff like that. But you also have to remember, once again, I said this before, everybody's concerned about how, Xbox is going to Windows 10 and it's becoming a PC. That's not what they're doing. I keep saying this. The PC guys understand it. They're not trying to make the Xbox into a PC. They're just bringing Xbox to PC, making PC almost console-like. That's what they're really trying to do. If you really think about everything that they're implementing, the way everything is designed, and the way how everything is behind Windows 10. It's really the biggest things that people often complain about. And still to this day, still complain about when it comes to PC and things like that. So I just think that in the end, what it comes down to is that Microsoft's making an effort. People recognize it. And in the end, Microsoft makes the changes that need to be changed, and they can continue to grow their install base. One second, guys. That's my son driving me crazy. Apologies. We have a 3-year-old, very spontaneous. You never know when things are going to happen. So it's definitely different. But, man, I think people need to just recognize Microsoft for their efforts, man. They're really trying. They're really trying to appease the PC crowd. And I think we're going to see some stuff at E3. And they're really trying to grow the player base for their software and third-party software, so that way people recognize. Now, my only thing is, I don't know if this works against Windows 10. I'm not sure it works against Windows 10. I think that if they are trying to put this behind Windows 10, it's not going to go over well. It won't go over well at all. Like, let's just be honest here for 1 second. If Microsoft wants this thing to work, this cross-network play, they can't put this feature behind Windows 10, I think. Because there's a lot of people who still are either on Windows 8 or Windows 7 and still play games like, on those services. On those OSs. And if you start to put these things behind Windows 10, you kind of alienate some people who play the game maybe on Windows 8. So I think that if they do it and they do it correctly, they really need to be able to focus on and make sure that third-party developers are able to allow gamers who are on the PC platform to play the game regardless of it being on Windows 10. Microsoft just needs to focus on what they're doing for Windows 10 software-wise to get people to use their games on Windows 10. But forcing third parties to use Windows 10 in order to have them do network play with Xbox One, I don't think that's a good idea. And I don't agree with that at all. I really don't. Because if I was a PC gamer, I wouldn't want to be forced to do anything that I don't want to do in order to have a larger install base. I don't think that's a good idea. So hopefully Microsoft is not doing that. And again, I don't know the full story behind what they're trying to do with network. Just based on my hearings and based on my readings and things like that, this is what I'm assuming is happening. But either way, it's a great feature and a great step up for Microsoft. Now, recently we got some news that Star Wars Battlefront was actually the first DX12 game, and people have been going crazy because the game released at 720p. I don't know how many times I have to say this. I said this before, even when I had Brad Wardell on the show, even when we had Phil Spencer on the show. DX12 is not going to help resolution. It's not. DX12 is a CPU bound API. Okay. We're talking about frames per second, more objects on screen. We're talking about things that have to do with the game, any game being written for the CPU, that's CPU bound. The GPU is a different story. Now, if you're a PC gamer, it affects the GPU a lot more and a lot better than it would on the Xbox One platform. Now, that's not to say that DX12 won't help the Xbox One. People keep thinking that it won't. It won't do anything. Never has Phil Spencer ever said that it wouldn't help. Never has Mike Ybarra come on the show and said that it would never help. Never has Brad Wardell come on the show and never said that it will never help. I've had all three of them on the show. And the reality of it is that the API will help the platform. The question is how. That's something we don't know. Now, when you look at DX, you look at Star Wars Battlefront, you look at the textures, you look at how good the game looks. The game is a stunning game. For whatever reason, we don't know why the game's resolution is the way it is. Maybe the Xbox GPU could handle it. Either way, the question is, how did the game run? Was the game playable? In those settings, that's equal or on par to the PlayStation 4, regardless of resolution. Did the game run just as good or worse? That's where you want to look at DX12. And the question is, was it built for DX12 from the ground up, or was it just ported over? Because there's a lot of games that's coming out this year that are just ports. And some games that are built from the ground up are PC only. I haven't gotten word yet that Quantum Break is a DX12 game on Xbox. Not at all. I haven't gotten that yet. And I haven't gotten word that Forza, well, I already know Forza is not a DX12 game. It is a DX11.2. I think it is. It's like a hybrid version. When I spoke to Dan Greenwald at E3, that is something that he brought up as like a hybrid version. But even then, you look at that game, the game still looks stunning. So it's just really all about DX12 and seeing how these games work and stuff like that. I think Quantum Break is a DX12 game on PC. I don't think it's a DX12 game on Xbox One. I don't. I think it's still a DX11 game. It's been built for Xbox One since day one in DX11, and they were able to get the DX12 version running on PC. I think recently, honestly, I won't say like in the last month. Obviously, that's not true, but they got it running on DX12 and they got the game ready. I think one of the reasons why they held off on talking about it, that Aaron Greenberg said, was that they wasn't sure the game would be ready for PC. And when they found out the game was going to be ready for PC at the same time as launches the Xbox One version, that's when they announced it. So really, this game has been coming to PC from the Xbox side of things for a long time. It just was that they didn't think it was going to come, so they didn't want to say it's coming to PC, and then boom, it doesn't come because they couldn't put it out in a fast enough time. So everything was always Xbox exclusive. It's deceptive as hell. I mean, that's without question. It's very deceptive. I mean, I'm not going to sit up here and say it's not. It kind of is. When you sit up there and you promote a game that's exclusive for the life of the title, since day one, and then suddenly in the last couple of weeks or the last month before you get to the release of the title, you then turn around and say it's for PC. But I just think Microsoft should be more upfront with it. Just say, hey, we have a PC version. We're going to try to make launch. If we don't make launch, we'll keep you posted on a date. And just call it a day, man. Don't keep gamers in the dark. Don't keep us in the dark. And another thing I want to touch on, I'm like all over the place today. I just have so much, but another thing I want to touch on very quickly is that what's funny is that Microsoft also talks about what was it? Oh man, I just lost it. I lost it. I can't believe I just had it in my head for 1 second and then I lost it in the next. Uh I don't know. I lost it. If it comes back to me, I'll bring it back up. But either way, I think that Microsoft is they need to be a little bit upfront when it comes to what is a DX12 title on Xbox One and what is not. I believe Gears 4 is built from the ground up for DX12, so I do expect that game to be big. It's unfortunate what happened to Fable Legends, which was supposed to be a DX12 title, or at least a DX12 ported title. And that's pretty unfortunate for them. But I think that people are jumping the gun here with DX12. Quantum Break looks amazing. If they do come out and announce that the game is DX12 on Xbox One, then that would be awesome as well, because it just shows you the quality. If you look at the games that Microsoft produced prior to this, there's not one game Microsoft has produced that looks better than Quantum Break. It's just not. And I heard Gears is just on a whole nother level, and I cannot wait to say Gears. By the way, the Gears 4 beta comes out in April. The Gears 4 beta comes out in April. I am so excited. I cannot wait to get my hands on this multiplayer, to get a chance to see what it's like. You get to play as Marcus Phoenix's son, who is voiced by Liam. I believe his last name is McKellen. He is the second actor who plays Spartacus in the Spartacus series. Shout out to the first actor who passed away, man. He was a great guy. I really liked him as Spartacus. Unfortunately, he passed away from cancer. But Liam McKellen, he played a great follow-up as Spartacus in the series, and he will be the main lead voice for I can't remember Marcus's son name, but he's going to be the new Phoenix. That's going to be leading a new team of that's going to be for Gears 4. So for those of you who don't know, yes, Gears will not be bringing back the original team. Their story is over. They're moving on with 3 new characters, a new team, and some really cool looking new locusts and monsters and creatures. And they're going for a darker tone. So that's awesome as well. Kind of like the original, which really had a dark tone. I really love the original. General Ram was just awesome with the krill shield and everything. Like, oh my God, it was just dope. Moving from light to light or getting killed by krill bats. Like, why did they remove that from the game? I don't know. You know, the first game was so innovative, man. It was just amazing graphically. It was stunning. It was like, it was the game that got me to get that 360, bro. It really, really was. I saw that and was just like, I have to play this game. It just looks, I've never seen a game look this amazing before. So it says a lot. But in the end, I think that Gears 4 is going to be stunning. So check that out in April. That's going to be big. And I'm pretty sure that's going to be a DX12 title. So a lot of DX12 titles that Microsoft will be announcing over the next couple of months. And we'll see how those all pan out. But I wouldn't jump the gun just because one game is 720p. Microsoft nor Phil Spencer has ever said that DX12 would improve the resolution of a game. Never said that. No one has ever said that. The only thing that DX12 will do is help with CPU-bound functions on the Xbox One. That's it. And how that improves the Xbox games overall, we'll have to see. We have no evidence of such. But everyone I've spoken to has said it will help the Xbox One, even if only a little bit. Even if it does help, it helps. But to sit up there and say it does nothing, it's just being ignorant. You know, I've spoken to a lot of people in the industry, a lot, especially the Xbox side of things. So I know a lot of things about what's happening on the Xbox side of things. And DX12 will help. Will it help to the extent that it's going to help PC? Absolutely not. We're talking about the PC moving from DX11 to DX12 as a whole, moving down to, console-like functionality when it comes to developing games, where consoles already are. The Xbox is already at a level, the metal level when it comes to developing games, where PC is now going to be able to hit that with this API and DX12. However, there's still things that are in DX12 that will help the Xbox One and help make those games better and make games more improved. DX12, obviously, whatever it did for them to get the game to function or look the way it looked or do what it does on the Xbox One for Star Wars Battlefront, which I skipped on because I just felt that it lacked way too much content for me to spend $60 on the game. And then to turn around and buy DLC, I'm not doing it. So I passed on it. Plus Halo came out and, I had to pick up Halo. But in the end, I think that what winds up happening is that you have people look at this and they're going to run with this. They're going to run with it. They're going to run it in the ground. And that's unfortunate. But hopefully Microsoft is able to show off some more stuff. And if we can get confirmation that Quantum Break is a DX12 title running on Xbox, that would be great. But I can't wait to see what Gears like in April. I'm so hyped for Gears. Man, it's like I'm like off the charts. So I just want to finish up and talk about upgradable hardware. Now, Microsoft, again, they have been coming out talking about upgradable hardware and everything like that. And there's been some things that I spoke about based on the original talks. Where Phil spoke about hardware and peripherals and add-ons in a conversation that probably at the time we all speculated on. But the more information that's come out, the more I understand the vision that they see with future Xboxes. Now, it's a possibility we may get an Xbox One this summer that could be a slim, that literally could be a respect Xbox. It could be a respect Xbox. People all the time, and I've been getting this a lot lately, people have been hitting me up because the last show that we did, it got a lot of views. It really did. Obviously it was a big show. Lionhead had shut down, Press Play shut down, and we spoke about upgradable hardware. And a lot of people hit us up and they didn't agree that, what Microsoft was doing was smart and that it was disastrous. And I have to keep stressing to people, you cannot think like PC. You can't. You cannot think like PC. What Microsoft is trying to implement is nothing like PC. You cannot dictate how this will work based on the past. Okay? You're going to have a possibility of a new console that comes out every 4 to 5 years, almost like iPhones. Okay. Obviously phones come out a lot faster than that. I'm not saying that it's going to be every 4 to 5 years like iPhones, because iPhones come out a lot faster than that. But for consoles, every mid-generation for a particular console, you may come out with a newer version of that console. And obviously, we don't know what the price may be. It could be $300. It could be $400. I don't know. However, this new upgradable hardware will still be able to run the same games from the generation that's still ongoing now. So let's say Xbox came out with an Xbox One Slim. The Xbox One Slim was revamped with improved parts that allows it to run all games at 1080p, 60 frames per second, locked. All the textures are damn near on par with the PC, and it's able to run cloud the way they originally wanted it to run cloud. They have everything that they wanted for the original Xbox One. They have everything that they wanted to put in it. Plus, it's been upgraded. When they turn around, they sell it for $300. You can trade in your Xbox One towards it, let's say for $100 to $150, and get it for $250 or $350. I'm sorry, not $350. Either $250 or $200 based on whatever the trade-in value, or $300 based on whatever the trade-in value is for the console. Now, at the end of the day, what winds up happening is that what Microsoft has designed under this universal Windows platform is that it gives the developer one API to build a game. You can have a base game. The base game will be built for the Xbox One. Okay? That's the base game. With the base game being built for Xbox One, if you were to get that same game and play it on the newer version of the Xbox One, let's just say the Xbox Slim, the game is scalable. You don't have to change the specs or build the game for that console. You build the base game. and the game is scalable to the new specs of the Xbox Slim. That's how the universal Windows platform works. It's the reason why it's so easy to do. Now, in regard to iPhone, what's really interesting is something that Phil said was, when you think about how iPhones work, or any mobile device for that matter, you're able to move things that you owned on one phone, apps, games, music, videos, from that one phone to the next phone, and constantly get even newer things that can still even run on the older things, until the older things just become so obsolete they can't run them. And everyone has the newer version of the newer console. It's not like we're asking devs to make 2 copies of a game. And that's the thing people think about. You think about a game like Tomb Raider. You had Tomb Raider being built for the Xbox One, but they had to subset in another team to make the 360 version. Titanfall was built for the Xbox One, but they had another team make the same game for the 360 version. You wouldn't have to do that. You would just have this one developer make this one game that would work for PC under Windows 10. It would work for Xbox One, and it will work for the Xbox Slim, and the game is scalable. On the Xbox Slim, if you think about all the games that you purchased on Xbox and all the games that you own from 360 that are now backwards compatible that you own a license to on the Xbox One, all those games are transferable to the newest Slim version. So it's a crazy situation in regards to the Xbox, because what winds up happening is it now gives your games the ability to always be with you in a digital fashion. So it's not so much that the new Xbox Slim, is something that people won't want. People are going to flock to this console because they're able to bring their games and always have their games on any device that they always get from Microsoft. I think that's the console seller. That's what sells that console. That's what sells it. If you're a PC gamer, obviously it doesn't work for you. I get a lot of PC guys that say I could do that right now on my PC. That's great. Do it. I'm happy that you're able to do it on a PC. But in a console space, as a console gamer, that's not something console gamers get. So being able to have an Xbox Slim, and have another Xbox after that, and have all the games from my 360, all the games from my Xbox One, any newer games you come out as the Xbox Slim becomes the base console, and the Xbox One becomes obsolete over time, and then you have a mid-gen version that comes out with better specs, and then you have all the games from the Xbox Slim that was designed for that exclusively, and that moves up to the next one. Talk about third parties. Just think about third parties. Think about all the games you may have purchased from the original Xbox and the original Xbox 360. And how all those games had the possibility of always being under your account, always being tied to your name on any Xbox that you purchase. Your library of games would exceed the thousands. All the people, I think about all the people out there who are retro gamers. And you look at their shelves, you look at their walls, and they have all these games. They have consoles and all these games in cases and shelves and shelves and shelves of this stuff. Now imagine those guys had all those games, but in a digital format. The only problem you may have is space. That's the biggest issue you have, is space. Where do you get the space to put all these games? That's the question. And with external hard drives, the Xbox One being able to hold up to, I think they said it holds up to 36 terabytes. I don't know, something like that. I think it's 8 terabytes. Yeah, I think it's 8 terabytes. I think the Xbox can hold up to 8. Is it 8 terabytes? Yeah, I think it's 8 terabytes per USB port. I think you can have 4 of them at each port. Last time I remember. That's a lot of memory. 32 terabytes. That's a lot of memory. But in the end, if you are able to sustain that, yes, you can swap out externals if you want. I mean, I'm pretty sure the next Xbox or the next Xbox Slim will come with a terabyte of of space, or at least more than that. And if you're able to have external hard drives, then you can actually put an abundance of games on each particular hard drive. A MyBook or some type of hard drive that you can take with you. So I just think that an Xbox Slim, being able to bring all my games from the original Xbox 360, and have those come with me any console I want to get on, plus have games that are forward compatible. They still work on the Xbox One. You don't segregate the install bases. I don't know why people think the install bases is going to be segregated all of a sudden. If you build one game for the Xbox One, it doesn't negate the fact that you can't play that same game on the Xbox Slim with the newer specs. It doesn't. That's not how it works. Now, what could happen, unfortunately, is that the multiplayer may take a hit because you might want 30 frames per second or 60 frames per second for this particular console or that particular console. But here's the thing. For Xbox, if you've noticed, most of the multiplayer games that come out on Xbox are 60 frames per second. That's the truth. Most of the games that have come out have been 60 frames per second. The biggest difference, multiplayer-wise, has been the resolution. Does that not stop us from playing the game? It really doesn't. If my game runs at 1080p 60 and your game runs at 900p 60, that doesn't stop us from still playing the game. It just doesn't. Now when you look at the single player aspect of it, that doesn't matter. I can run the game at 1080 60. Your game can be 1080 30. That doesn't matter. We're talking about multiplayer here when it comes to that aspect of having the install base and still playing. I think people fear the unknown. When you don't know what's going to happen or you fear change, you try to come up with all these excuses of why it won't work. You do not work for Microsoft. Stop thinking you do. Do not be an armchair engineer. That's the one thing I don't do. The only thing I ever do is speculate. That's what I do. I speculate. I leave questions out there for you guys to answer. I think it's important that we think about the future of Xbox and the possibilities and speculate on these things, because you know what? As gamers, we're curious. We're always curious about the new thing, the next big thing, what's hot, what isn't hot, what's failing, and what's succeeding. That's why we're gamers, because we love the competitive and intensity of gaming. And we always want our devices to be successful. That's why we cheer them on. That's why we support them. But if you're an armchair engineer and you don't work for one of the leading companies when it comes to technology in the entire world, you shouldn't be talking, because building a PC is not on the same level of whatever Microsoft is doing at their studios. It's just not. We don't know what they're doing. We have no idea what they're doing. And like I said before, I look at what Panos Panay has done with the Surface. Think about that. Just think about the Surface Book for 1 second. Okay? This man is the man that is going to be leading up your next Xbox. The Surface Book has a GPU, the CPU, and motherboard built into the keyboard itself. You can unattach the screen from it, and it turns the screen into a Surface Pro 4. If you attach the screen to it, it increases the power. This is insane. It increases the power of the Surface Pro 4 and turns it into a Surface Book, and it becomes a full-blown megaton laptop. Now, obviously, you're not going to do that with an Xbox. However, I'm pretty sure he has some type of idea when it comes to the Slim or it comes to the next spec Xbox. And this is what Microsoft is going to be doing in the future when it comes to this design type. And this is how you keep the Xbox relevant with PC. As you put games that come out on the Xbox and it comes out on the PC, the biggest fear that Xbox gamers have is the inferiority complex of games just being better on PC. You have an exclusive that was designed and built for your console, and yet the game comes out and runs 10 times or 5 times better than it does on your own console. If you have a console that can do those things or close to those things, you have less people crying and griping about things because they're still playing at a premium setting. instead of in an inferior setting. You'll never be on the same level as PC. Let's just get that clear. Xbox gamers, Xbox games going to PC. If you're an Xbox console gamer, you must know for a fact you will never ever be able to play on the level of a PC. You just won't be able to. However, if you can come close or you can be at a premium design or a premium pacing, yes, that's the way it should be. And that's how it should work. And I think Microsoft is going to be doing that. And I think they are on the right path and the right design choice in doing that. And people who sit up there and complain about, oh, they shouldn't do this, it's not going to work, 32X. Why do people bring up the 32X? I don't even understand that concept. What is this, like 1997? I said this before. You can't do that. That's not how it works. Guys, give me half a second. My son is harassing me, knocking on the door. I'm back. Apologies, guys. It's the reason why I record over Skype because going live is not ideal when you have children and things like that. But again, like I said, I stated before that you can't really judge what Microsoft is doing based on old technology. Whatever they're doing is new. Whatever they have is innovative. And it's something that developers are just getting into. And unless you're developing games for it, you can't speak on it. We can only speculate on it. And speculating that it would fail in comparison to the 32X doesn't make sense. You're talking about an add-on peripheral that had games specifically designed for it. You had to make games for 32X. It was its own thing. When you bought a game for 32X, it had 32X only. You couldn't put it into the master console and get 32-bit graphics out of it. You had to use a 32X. That's not what the next upgradable Xbox is doing. What they're saying is that it doesn't matter if it was 32X. You could take a 32X game and put it into the master console and it was scaled down to the base console. Because that's what they're able to do in today's age, in 2016, people. Okay? Not 1992, 93, 94. 2016. Wake up. This is a new era, a new generation. Do you know how fast technology moves? Think about that. Do you know how fast things change in technology? Technology is constantly growing, constantly changing. So please stop using 32X as some type of, stopgap to make a point. Your point is mute. It doesn't make sense. That's not how it works. And if I really hope I've clarified that today in today's podcast, I really do. Because if you guys are still holding on to the thought that this thing will fail because they think that the Xbox One and the new Xbox games will be segregated because people have to make two games for two different platforms and two different install bases, you don't. It's one install base built under one API that scales between the two console specs. And I think the sooner people understand how it works, the less, shall I say, people have to fear. And once people realize the vision that they're trying to do with the Xboxes and how they're upgradable and how they're forward and backward compatible and how the games are scalable, and you introduce network play, and then you introduce cloud. This is Microsoft's game to really make a hell of a run and really put themselves in the forefront of technology and innovation with their next set of consoles under Phil Spencer. People was trying to get on Phil Spencer for all the things that he's doing that communicative wise may not be smart and may put fear and gloom in people. But when you really look at the overall picture of what's happening, they're really trying to take their console and their services into a space that no other console is actually doing at the moment. Not even the NX, which I think is a great time to talk about as we get towards the end of the show. The Nintendo NX recently, I saw a picture of a possible controller. Now, I don't know if this is true or not. This is basically rumor. I'm putting it out there right now. This could be something that somebody made up. All I'm saying is, if it's true that what they showed is the controller, I am not getting an NX. I will buy a PlayStation 4 to get my RPG fix. They had this controller. The entire controller looks like a touchscreen. The entire controller. They had a cross pad on one side. I don't even know there was buttons on that thing, but the entire controller looked like a screen. What? So it looks like a handheld device that you play with, that you attach to the console. And clearly you're probably able to take that game with you anywhere you want to. I think Nintendo is doing this thing where it's like they look at the success of the Nintendo DS and all the iterations they've had with it and how successful it is, and then figure out a way to combine the console space with the mobile space. I don't know if that's a good idea. I think if you're a console gamer, mobile people, not saying they don't buy consoles, but mobile people play mobile because it's mobile. They're always on the go all the time. I mean, I'm not saying it's not cool not to do that, but I just want a traditional controller, man. Like, just Nintendo, just beating the Super Nintendo. Just give me Super Nintendo 2. That's all I want. Maybe I'm old fashioned. Maybe I'm an old school guy. I just want Super Nintendo 2. Super Nintendo, in my opinion, is Nintendo's best console. I know N64 was good. GameCube was okay. Wii U was trash. Not Wii U. Nintendo Wii was trash, in my opinion. Wii U was not bad, but it's not something I would purchase. Super Nintendo will forever be, to me, the greatest console they ever created. Ever. And to this day, all I want from them is another Super Nintendo. Just give me another Super Nintendo. Give me something I could pop the disc in. That little bing, Nintendo sound pops on, and let me get started playing the next Mario with a traditional controller. I get Nintendo is the company that innovates, but it has not worked for them. That's the thing. People are like, don't stop Nintendo from innovating. They're innovative. They've been doing things and changing the way we play games. Nobody wants. I mean, how many times have we seen this already? We've seen this with the PlayStation 9, the Kinect, the Wiimotes, the glowing balls from PlayStation, the Move. Console gamers and hardcore gamers do not care for none of these gimmicks. We don't care for it. We just don't. All we want to do is play games in the least with the least amount of movement as possible. Like, if I can really say it, with the least amount of movement as possible. Just give me a controller with twin sticks. Give me some triggers and some buttons. You want to put a small screen for some things in the middle, fine. If you want to put some type of motion trackpad, fine. If you want to put a speaker there, fine. But don't make me focus on the controller. Don't make the focus the controller. I want to play the games. I want games to be as realistic as possible. That's what we want. I think that's what every gamer wants. We want games to become as realistic as they possibly can. from movement to the voice acting to the facial features to the expressions that are remote expressions that we can see on screen that really gives us a sense of the feeling of the game. The more we can engross ourselves in the game emotionally and mentally, the better the games are. It's just the truth. You know, when you have to start taking away from what's happening on screen and you're looking down at things that's on your controller, I just think that it takes away from those things. It really does. It just takes away from the feel of what you're trying to get into. So, like I said, I'm not saying that Nintendo shouldn't stop innovating. I'm just saying, just make a basic controller. What is their highest selling controller? The on the Nintendo Wii, I believe it's the traditional. I think they have like a 6-button controller that people buy instead of the Wiimote. Like they actually have gone out and bought a controller because a lot of people don't like that big ass screen that they have to hold. It's like if you're not recognizing what people are purchasing, you're just going to keep beating to your own drum. Nothing wrong with that. But if you're not finding success at that twice, that says something. Now, for all intents and purposes, Nintendo games sell out of this world. They absolutely do. Like literally, when it comes to the quality of their titles, they really are. And I hate to admit this, but they really are number one. The quality of their titles, they always get high scores, and they never really have many bugs. Nintendo just has a seal of quality, unlike any other game company. But they sell great because that's all they have. They don't have third-party games to compete with. They really just don't. So all they have on Nintendo titles. So of course they're going to sell well. Imagine when Call of Duty in a game like, let's say, Mass Effect hits the console and another game that comes out from Nintendo hits the console. Those sales will probably drop. Third-party games will eventually come in and probably knock some of that first-party sales a little bit down. But when you only have first-party to rely on mainly, then yeah, I mean, what else can you put out? What do you expect? But obviously, the console sales themselves don't show many people jumping at the gun to pick up a Nintendo Wii U. I would love to pick up a Nintendo console as a Nintendo fan. I just don't think the Wii and the Wii U was my thing. My last Nintendo console was a GameCube, and to this day, I really loved that console. I thought it was an awesome console. I loved the controller. It just was really cool. It really was. That generation of PS2, GameCube, and Xbox was an amazing generation. One of my fondest generations. I love that generation. I love that generation more than the 360 PS3 era. I really do. And I love the 360. I thought the 360 was an amazing console. PS3, not so much. PS2, I loved as well. So, you know, again, I don't want to get off subject too much. I just feel like, you know, when it comes to Nintendo, they need to get back to basics. I think basics, there's nothing wrong with getting back to basics. You know, basics are a foundation. If you can get back to a foundation of things and you're doing things in that regard, in that respect, people will look at the foundation you're trying to build. And if you want to introduce things that are innovative, then you introduce them. But I think they're losing themselves with coming out with all these gimmicky ways to play. You for 2 generations, you've had people use 2 different peripherals to play games. First it was the sticks, now it was the pad. Now you're going into something else smaller, like a controller. It's like it's just too much change all the time. The things that make the PlayStation and the Xbox great is that they have these controllers that are consistent. We know them. We're familiar with them. We don't have to learn them again. We know exactly what it is. The only things we want for them is more things on the controller to be comfortable. Make it easier for my hands to do what I want them to do. Make it easier for me to press the buttons I want to press. That's the only things we want from these controllers. We don't want them to change to I don't want the Xbox One controller to have a wheel on it like a mouse. I don't want that. You know what I'm saying? I really don't. So I just feel like stick to what a traditional controller is. Innovate on the controller, but don't make the controller into a mobile game, a mobile console. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what they're trying to do. making it into a mobile console. Like, what? Come on. Doesn't make sense to me, in my opinion. But again, that's just my opinion. That's how I feel. And that's based on a rumor. If they come out and they really show the console and there's nothing like that, I will be happy and ecstatic to see what they have to show game-wise on the console before I make a purchase this winter on a PS4 or NX, and things like that. So we'll see how that all works out. But again, man, I really hope that this year is a great year for gaming all around. I can't wait to play Quantum Break. The Division has been a very fun experience for me. And I'm really thankful for just being here and being able to game and being able to talk to you guys on a consistent basis week in and week out. So I want to thank you guys for stopping in, checking out the show. I really appreciate it. I'm going to be taking some fan questions now for probably the next 20 minutes. And then we'll call it a day here over on Tick Podcast. So, just real quick, though, I just want to run some things by you guys. I am recruiting. We are coming out with 2 new podcasts, not related to Tick Podcast. I am not going to be host, and it will not be this team. We're creating 2 new podcasts. The first podcast will be called Tick UK. Yes, sir. To all my British people out there, all my international fans out there, I'm spicing it up. We have James and Alice, who work for TICGN. They are coming out with a show, and we are filling in 2 more spots. And basically, the show is going to be a focus around entertainment. These are my entertainment writers. They do a lot of the movie content that you guys may see on Tick Podcast that I tweet out, or TICGN if you're following it on Twitter. A lot of the news that you get for the movie sections and TV sections, those are the people who run it. But they also are gamers. They play Xbox, they play PlayStation, they play PC. So that podcast will focus a lot on entertainment in gaming as a medium, instead of just Xbox and industry news, third-party stuff like that. So you'll be able to get a chance if you want to hear reviews on movies and film. That's going to be the show to listen to. If you want to hear what's happening behind the scenes on certain movies or who's the next actor, that's going to be the show to listen to. If you want to hear things on gaming, third party, if you want a UK international perspective for all the guys out there who get tired of my American voice and lingo, you can go ahead and check out Tick UK. And again, we are recruiting. So if you're interested and you would like to join the Tick UK team, if you're an international guy, you don't have to be from the UK. You can be from anywhere in the world as long as you speak clear English, because this is important for people to understand you. And every once in a while, if you want to dabble in your own language, you can just, don't make it too consistent. But it would be cool every once in a while to hear a different lingo if you want to say something slick that people understand from your dialect. It would be really cool. So hit me up, man. You can DM me on the Tick Podcast channel on Twitter, or hit me up with an email at admin@ticgn.com via email, admin@ticgn.com. If you're interested in joining the Tick Network and becoming a podcaster for Tick UK. The other podcast that we have that we will be currently working on is called Tick Universe. Tick Universe will be a multi-platform podcast. I will not be hosting it. It will not be anywhere from the Tick Podcast team. It will be a completely new team that will focus on gaming in any space: PC, iOS, Android, PlayStation, Nintendo, all the things that people want to talk about. They'll be able to talk on Tick Universe. We'll be looking for a new host for that as well. If you're a PlayStation gamer or Nintendo gamer and you're interested, hit me up at admin@ticgn.com or DM me on Tick Podcast and things like that. I am growing my stuff, man. That's what you do. Okay. That's what you do. You expand, you grow, you stay consistent, you grow your install base, and that's how you develop into a powerhouse. And that's what I plan to do. We are revamping the website soon. We'll have an update. We'll have forums finally for you guys. We'll be making some big changes with the website. We are really trying to build a good place and space for you guys out there who want to just have conversations. Just join the website, talk, chat, put up your own videos, content. And I plan on doing highlights for the community as well. Let's get back to showing what you guys do out there on your own consoles. We're going to try to do top 10s, put those up on YouTube and things like that, and promote some of the content that the fans out there are doing on the Xbox One platform or the PC platform and things like that, because TICGN is also a PC website. So again, it's always about the fans. It's always about the gamer. That's what Tick Podcast is all about. And hopefully you guys enjoy what we're trying to do for you guys out there. And I appreciate all the support. So keep it locked. Let's see here. Do I have any questions, guys? Andy Hart says, can you see Xbox getting a Steam app? I think if Microsoft, in order for Microsoft to get a Steam app, they're going to have to put games on Steam. That's just the reality of it. There's no take and take with them. You can't put your games exclusively behind a paywall and then ask for Steam to put their app exclusively on the Xbox. Yes, it helps Microsoft when it comes to Steam. Well, put it like this. It helps Steam create more sales for their operating system. The question is, how do you eliminate games coming on Xbox? Because Microsoft then loses sales. If you have an indie game that comes out on Steam for $2 and a game that comes out on Xbox for $14.99, no one's going to buy that game for $14.99. They're going to buy the Steam game for $2. So I think what Microsoft has to do is they're going to have to implement a way where games that are coming to Xbox are eliminated from the store, and games that are only on Steam can be purchased through the Steam app and played through the Steam app, or played on Xbox, kind of like EA Access. You download it, it becomes a part of your Xbox library. You load it up, the Steam logo comes on, and you play the game, kind of like EA Access. I mean, I think that's the only way to do it. And by the way, Cliff Bleszinski just came out today and announced that Lawbreakers is exclusive to Steam this summer. I don't know what that means. I assume it's only for summer, because word was that he was trying to make it a multi-platform game at some point. I heard Microsoft had reached out, and there's a possibility Lawbreakers will come to the Xbox One at some point. But right now, currently, he just announced Lawbreakers will be exclusively on Steam. So Steam has an exclusive AAA game from Cliff Bleszinski. And Lawbreakers seemed like a really cool game. He's a really good developer. He's a really great developer, one of the best we have in the business. So again, if that was to happen, I think there's no give and give. There's going to be give and take, and I think Microsoft has to give something to Steam in order to compensate for them putting that app on the Xbox. I'm not saying that Microsoft couldn't figure out a way to allow Steam users to use, I guess you could say, maybe they can put some type of Windows store in Steam that allows people to still purchase games from Windows, and they have to still put it up on Windows 10. You just have to use the Steam version, the Windows 10 version of Steam instead of the older version of Steam. It won't work. There's ways around it. I just don't know if Microsoft will do it when they're trying to grow their own store and introduce people to other things besides just games. The great thing about having a digital store is that when you go into that digital store, you don't see games at first. You see other things, movies, you see games, you see music, you see apps. So there's a ton of other things that people who look in those stores could see and be interested in purchasing besides just games and stuff like that. And I think that's why Microsoft wants to continue to try to sell games behind their Windows store and the Windows 10 platform. But yeah, I mean, if they really wanted to put their games on Steam, they could. They just would have to find a better way of doing it. And I think if Steam wanted to bring in a bigger install base and get more sales from their particular store, they could too if they wanted to work with Microsoft. I think there are no two better partners out there that couldn't work together between Microsoft and Steam, because they really are in the same space in a way. And a lot of people say that Gabe Newell hates Microsoft. I don't think it's Microsoft. I think Gabe Newell hated particular people. And I think those particular people no longer exist at Microsoft. I think Phil is loved by a lot of people in the industry. And that Satya Nadella with this mobile first, cloud first, I guess you could say model that they're running over at Microsoft, I can see the whole cloud aspect coming into play, streaming games from Steam app onto Xbox. Give me one sec, guys. I'm going through some of the questions here. One second. XT3100 asks, do you remember me asking about cross network play with PlayStation games and Xbox games? I don't remember, honestly. I'll keep it real with you. I'm pretty sure you probably did ask me. I do these shows every week, bro. We have so many shows. So I tend to forget a lot of questions. But yeah, man, I think it was smart that Microsoft did that. And I'm hoping that now Sony, that the so open platform that everybody think is open, they will hopefully comply and they'll be able to join in Microsoft, and do some cross-platform gaming. I think it'd be really interesting if they did that, and it will really eliminate a lot of the fanboy rhetoric. Honestly, it's like a put up or shut up now. Hey, you can let's see how good you are on the sticks. You want to pop all that crap about resolution? Come see me in Call of Duty. Come see me in 2K. Come see me in Madden. FIFA, whatever it is that is crossplay and compatible between consoles. And for all the resolution that you guys have, if you're taking L's consistently, you can keep the res. I mean, that's what people would say, honestly. Let's see here. Dean Brown asks, so with this being the year of VR, do you think Microsoft released Oculus for Xbox One this Christmas? Here's the thing. I think that Microsoft is doing the right approach. Honestly, I look at first of all, Sony came out and announced VR. And I know some guys may get on me about talking about PlayStation on the Xbox channel, but I'm just answering the question. Sony announced VR. VR for them, the PSVR is $400. What people don't realize is that initially it didn't come with the camera. You need the camera in order to play the actual virtual reality game, so it can pick up your movements. At the same time, I believe recently they came out with one bundled with the camera. I think at a higher price. I think it's like $449 or something like that. Maybe it could be cheaper. Who knows? But I think, for everyone who sits up here and says, I would not buy another console, like I wouldn't buy another version of an Xbox, I'm not doing that again. I look at the people who buy the PlayStation VR and say to myself, why? If you can go out and buy a PlayStation VR peripheral, why wouldn't you buy another console that is upgradable and better than the one you have? That's all I'm saying. But back on topic. I think Microsoft is taking the right approach, not jumping the gun on virtual reality. Let's see how it plays out. Okay. I think Microsoft has done enough jumping the gun with the Kinect, jumping the gun, talking about cloud, jumping the gun, talking about DX12. Let's not talk about what they're doing. They've already jumped the gun just showing off Conquer with AR, with HoloLens. It did not go over well with people, even if that thing is never, ever going to see the light of day for actually being a game on HoloLens or coming out for the Xbox One. Microsoft takes the right approach and just does not come out with any type of device when it comes to virtual reality and just take their time. Take their time, see the landscape, see how it grows, because I think what you can do then is come out with something that beats all the competition. Okay, you see the design flaws in some of the virtual reality devices. You see what works, you see what doesn't work. You have plenty of time to write a beautiful roadmap of technology that you want to put out and build certain games that work on that platform to the point that it is amazing. And then you put out this hardware that blows everything away. Everything away, because these people are jumping into unexplored water. You know, as Microsoft, you're still on a ship watching someone get eaten by sharks. So it's the question is, do you want to jump in the water with them, or would you rather take a different approach and maybe build yourself a boat before you get into the water? I think that's a smart thing to do for Microsoft, and hopefully they do that. And if VR is a gimmick and it fades and it passes, guess what? Microsoft didn't waste no money on it, you know. But if it blows up and everybody wants it, then Microsoft can jump in and they can come out with the best tech. And I think that's a smart move for them. I don't think they come out with anything with Oculus this winter. Oculus really isn't so much a thing for Xbox. It's just a small partnership, man. You know, you're able to use the Xbox controller and you're able to play a few games through it, but nothing in the fact like you're playing Halo first person. That's not what they're doing, you know. It's just more of like this movie theater thing where you sit in and you can play the games on the movie theater screen. I don't see what the big deal is about that. I just rather watch I'd rather watch the game on my own television, you know, instead of putting on a head device that could bother me even more, especially if I move my head to the left, then I'm no longer looking at the screen that I'm playing the game on. So no, I don't think they'll come out with anything with Oculus this winter. Let's see. D21 exclusive says Gears of War 4 themed Xbox One Slim console this holiday. You think? Absolutely. I absolutely believe they will come out with an Xbox One theme for Gears of War 4. I wouldn't be surprised if that console was some type of mixture of black and red. And when you hit the Xbox button, a chainsaw revs. Expect it. Note it. Lock it in here. I said it first. Let's see. Okay. DX21 asks, do you think another Rare game will be announced this year or come out this year other than Sea of Thieves? I do. I think that Sea of Thieves, first of all, they said Sea of Thieves is like Destiny. I recently heard this. It's like you can have your own pirate crew and you play the entire game with your crew in co-op. And it's like one world. Like you can be on your own world. Like you go to certain areas, it's just your crew. There's no other people there. But then at the same time, there is aspects of the game where you interact in an MMO fashion, where you could be in a world and maybe run into another pirate crew and get into ship battles and things like that. I would love to build a ship and just, be the captain of it, have this awesome crew, and everybody has a role in the game. I really hope it's like that. I would hate for everyone to have like similar characters and then you just do whatever. I would really like for people to have classes and they don't cross over. It's like if you build yourself a captain, you're the captain, and there's certain things you can do and there's certain things you can't. And if you're a marksman, you're a marksman. There's certain things you can do, certain things you can't. And if there's just different people that do different things on the ship. If you're a shipwright, you're the one who builds the ships. I think that would be really dope. Like, could you imagine being able to really recruit someone on your team that knows how to build ships? Like you go out into the world and people are like I'm getting ahead of myself. I can't think that way. I know this game is not going to be like that. I think about Final Fantasy X and damn it, what was the name of that soccer like water game that they had on Final Fantasy X? Oh man, I used to love it. You would travel around the Final Fantasy universe and recruit people to play on your team. And the water soccer game, which was so dope. And you can build this amazing team of people that you found just sitting around in the environment throughout Final Fantasy X. And I imagine just now would be so epic to be able to recruit real people onto your team, like real people who are really at the top of their class as shipbuilders or marksmen or swashbucklers or captains. Like, oh my god, how epic would that be if you were able to do that? It'd be so dope. Andy Hart asks, what are your thoughts on Crackdown? Crackdown has the potential to be a major megaton franchise for Microsoft. And I know people don't see that, but I just want to talk about a few factors of why I think that's possible. First of all, you have Dave Jones on it, who is the original creator of Grand Theft Auto. If you look at Grand Theft Auto today, Crackdown is the perfect game to design just like Grand Theft Auto. You can build a game because there's vehicles in the game. You can build a game where the world is like Grand Theft Auto. Everything is real. The only difference is instead of you being a person living in, I guess you could say, the criminal world, because that's what Grand Theft Auto mainly is all about. You're mostly a criminal. You're a good guy, but you're also a criminal. That's the truth. But in this regard, you're a good person. So maybe you're stopping crime. You're able to chase down bad guys. Like random events happen in the game and you're able to chase down people. Something goes down in front of you. You can hop in a truck. The truck transforms into like this monster car truck. And you're able to, blast nitrous and chase them down and all these amazing things like this. This is one of the cool things about Crackdown back in the day, was that if you had certain skills, certain things would happen. If you were able to run super fast, then you would run. If you were able to jump, you would jump. One of the great things about Crackdown was you could get into a normal car, and if your driving skills were really, really good, the car would transform on you into like this amazing rocket, super fat roadster. And it was amazing. So somehow they lost it with 2. Dave Jones didn't work on that. He only worked on the first one, but he's working on this one. I think if they can somehow implement a Grand Theft Auto like Living City, but allow you to play the game in a mission by mission, story by story basis like Grand Theft Auto, and then at the same time you're able to, battle bosses and things like that, and you build your character along the way instead of just being like an open world and you're just running around exploring, which you can still do just like GTA. I just feel like they need to make it like GTA but superhero-esque. If they do that, there's no stopping this franchise. You have the destructibility of Cloud. You're going to have massive destruction in single player. And then you're going to have, well, you don't have massive destruction in single player. You'll have like 50% destruction in the single player, because if you can't blow up everything, you can't blow up every building. I think certain things single player wise will be scripted so that way it doesn't ruin or break the single player experience. However, I think what would be dope is like if you blew up a building and 2 days later you came back into the game, you would see construction happening on that building being rebuilt. Like you would start to see beams and people working on it. And then the next thing you know, the building is back. Or they give you a penalty, like if you had money stored up as a criminal, as a cop, and you blow up a building, they would take it out of your funds. So you have to be very careful of what you do in the single player aspect. But in the multiplayer aspect, all bets are off. Everything is destructible. Everything falls. If you're in a building sniping, I'm going to take out the building. Forget the sniper. Just blow the base of the building up and watch that baby tumble. That is game changing. There is no game, not even Battlefield is on that level. I don't know why people always try to compare it. It's not. It's scripted. You have to blow up the same area all the time in order for that destruction to happen. In a way, if you want a particular map to flood, you gotta blow up the dam that's holding the water back. So in this, that doesn't matter. You blow up a building on a certain angle, it falls in that direction. The physics in this game is incredible, and if Microsoft gets us to work like we all hope it works, and we get a chance to play it this summer and we enjoy it, this game has the potential to be a revived, rebooted franchise that will just make Microsoft and their games really be looked at like, wow, they have almost everything, almost everything, almost, because they don't have any real hardcore Japanese RPGs. But if Scalebound takes care of that and Recore takes care of that, then they would have these big AAA franchises that is very diverse. Let's see. D21 asks, will Sea of Thieves be free to play or $60 game, and how long has it been in development? Sea of Thieves has been in development for a minute. Sea of Thieves actually has been in development way before the Xbox One was introduced. They were working on Sea of Thieves while they were also working on Connect Sports Rivals. So that was the other side project they were working on. They've been developing that for a minute. It was a part of the $1 billion I guess you could say collective that Don Matcher talked about when they first introduced the Xbox. Sea of Thieves will be a free-to-play game because it's an MMO type game. However, I'm sure there will be some microtransactions or something that gets you into the game to play. It will be cross-platform. It is also coming out for Windows 10 PC, and PC guys and Xbox guys will be able to play together, and that will just really blow up the install base and keep that game going for a very long time. And to be honest with you, I would rather that game not get canceled and Fable Legends get canceled in its place. Seriously, because I'm really looking forward to Sea of Thieves. I'm excited about it. We are good friends with Craig Duncan, and I can't wait to have him on the show to talk about it. He's already said that he wants to come on, so I'm excited to have him on to talk about it and get a better idea of what Sea of Thieves is like. By the way, we got invited to the Bethesda conference this year, so we're going to be trying to make it into the Bethesda conference this E3, as well as the regular E3 conference, as well as a few others, maybe EA. Maybe we'll even do the unthinkable and go into a Sony press conference. Oh my God. We'll see. Who knows? Let's see here. Dean Brown asks, what are your thoughts of Star Wars Battlefront being Xbox One first DX12 game, yet it was still 720p? I spoke about that at length in the show. DX12 doesn't do anything for resolution. I don't know why people keep thinking that. Never has anyone come out and said DX12 would do anything for resolution. DX12 is an API that is CPU bound. It works for things when it comes to anything. If you're running graphics through the CPU, then sure. But I'm pretty sure that Star Wars was a GPU bound game because it was graphic intensive. CPU bound games are more things like objects on screen, frames per second, physics, just things of those calibers that the CPU calculates. That's what it's all about. And I think we'll see things like that when it comes to games like Gears of War, games like Crackdown, Scalebound. Think about Scalebound for 1 second. Scalebound is a game that is 4-player co-op. I just want you to think about this. This game is 4-player co-op, right? There are 2 people on screen, or 2 characters on screen at the same time. It's you, your main character, and a dragon. Imagine 4 dragons on screen at the same time with 4 other characters in an open world with all types of physics and particle effects happening at the same time. Now, try to make that game run at 60 frames per second. That's where DX12 comes in, because normally that would not happen. I can see all types of lag. I can see all types of frame rate drops. It would just be insane. A game like Crackdown, that's physics intensive, destruction intensive, you need something like DX12 because you don't want any lag. You just can't have it. You can't have, because of the calculations of the physics of the destruction of everything blowing up, you just can't have the games have a stop or slow to a crawl. So I think DX12 comes in that regard. I just don't see it improving resolution. What could improve resolution is cloud. Cloud could improve resolution because you're removing resources from the base console, which is the physics being counted and things like that, because that's happening streamed wise. And you can take the resources that was used for that and implement it into the resolution. How much resources does that free up? I don't know. I'm just saying that it's possible depending on what you're doing with cloud compute and how it affects the console and what resources is free to put back into resolution. Uh, People said the same thing about Sunset Overdrive. It flopped. Sunset Overdrive did not flop. Sunset Overdrive sold over 1 million copies. Sunset Overdrive did not come out the gate very well. It just sold very slowly. But the game was definitely not a flop. It's actually a cult classic. A lot of people love the game and look forward to a second one. I don't know if Microsoft will invest in it, but it was different. I enjoyed the game. A lot of people enjoyed it, and it did sell well over 1 million. Let's see here. Hulk Smash says, "What up? Hype more for Gears 4 since more info drop? I know I am. I definitely am after seeing all those pictures and reading about it. I'm very excited about it. I know a lot of people were like not because they wanted Marcus Phoenix and they wanted the original team, Cole and Baird and all of them. But, listen, man, you got to move on. Like, people have to, in order to innovate and change things, man, sometimes you got to make changes. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. They tried to make some changes with Halo. I liked it. Some people didn't. I like Locke. Everybody hates Locke. Why? Master Chief and Locke are the same character. They have the same personality traits. Like, just keep it 100. They really do. They barely talk. They have monotone. The only difference is that we know more about Chief than we know about Locke. They failed with telling a story about Locke and giving us a sense of who he is as a character. Locke is the greatest manhunter in the Halo universe. And he's an amazing soldier, and he's done an amazing thing working for Oni, even though Oni is a very conniving and secretive organization. I just think that Microsoft. I just think that Locke, if he was fleshed out, would be a great character. I also love his suit. I really do. He, to me, as a character, if the writing was better, could really come off as a very what's what I'm looking for? As a very, I guess you could say, powerful type character, because he has such bass in his voice, and he comes off as like this stoic type character. But the writing was just so bad. No one knew who Team Osiris was. You had to listen to the dialogue just to get a tidbit of who these people were. But really, it's like when you look at Blue Team and their history, you look at Chief and his history, how can you compare Team Osiris to Blue Team? You can't. Like, Blue Team is legendary. Team Osiris is just like some run-of-the-mill group with some Spartan 4 armor, like, like, who are you? Nobody. But overall, I did like the team. That was a very talented team. They just didn't flesh it out very well, and I think a lot of people were disappointed in that, and more people wanted to play with Chief more than they wanted to play with Locke. But I really enjoyed the story of Halo 5. A lot of people didn't, but I thought it was really, really good. I really did. I thought it was really good. Hopefully, I don't know where they go from here, because to me, they just eliminated the Flood. I don't know how the Flood hasn't been in Halo 4 and Halo 5. The Flood is not dead. Be honest with you, the whole story should focus on the destruction of the Flood. You already stopped the Covenant. Now you have to figure out a way to do something about the Halo rings, do something about the Flood, because the Flood is still an imminent threat. I don't understand how they're not focusing on that. I don't know what they're going to do about rewriting the story or going in that direction, but that's something they should focus on. What they're doing with Cortana, I don't know. I don't know, but we'll see what happens in Halo 6. Let's see. D Brown asks, what do you think about cross-network play? Excited? Will we suffer cause of PSN? Cross-network play. We won't suffer from PSN because the games won't be running on PSN. They'll be third party run, and they won't get Azure or Microsoft servers because the games will be third party run. You will not expect us to play PlayStation games on Xbox or Xbox games on PlayStation. That's not how it's going to work. Am I excited? Sure, I'm excited. I have friends on PlayStation that I would love to play against or play co-op with, but that's up to Sony now. It seems Sony is they've got a lot of red tape and policies to work through all of a sudden. So we'll see what happens. Let's see here. Andy Hart says, hope Dead Rising 4 is a Microsoft exclusive. I also hope it is. And I hope they continue the story from Dead Rising 3. I thought Dead Rising 3, I never played the Dead Rising before. First of all, I didn't like it. Dead Rising 3 had me hooked. The story was actually good. It was actually a really good story if people followed it. And for a release title, it has me interested in Dead Rising 4. And I hope they continue that story because this kid has the cure in his body. If you haven't seen it, that was a spoiler. I apologize if you haven't played the game, but I need to find out what happens next. Like, these people were experimented on, and I need to find out what happens next. So I'm very interested in finding out what's going to happen with Dead Rising 4. Cool. Well, guys, we're coming up on the end of the show. I really appreciate everybody stopping in. I had a great time. Just chatting with everyone and talking about Xbox, talking about what's been going on in the industry and talking about what's been happening recently within the community. I just want people to continue to play games, be excited about what's coming out, look forward to the future, and stop worrying about the nonsense of the console war. I think the console war is taking over our lives way too much. I understand competition. I understand the competitiveness of it. But again, we're gamers. It should be all about fun. It should always be about gaming first. We should always just look at the games as a whole. Are the games getting better? Are they getting worse? Who's doing what? Who's innovating? Who's not? What's to look forward to? What's not to look forward to? Microsoft is doing things that other consoles are doing, but in their own networks. Microsoft is doing the same thing in their own network. I don't see anyone who complains about games that go to PS3 and Vita. People still look at them as something that's behind Sony and PlayStation. You need those devices to play them. If you want to play games on PC that are Xbox, you're going to need Windows 10. First of all, you're going to have to upgrade to Windows 10. Second of all, you're going to have to play them behind the Windows 10 store. That's just another device for Microsoft, whether it's PC or tablet. They're not forcing you to buy another device. They're just saying if you have a PC, if you can run the games, you're just going to have to play them behind the Windows store. I see no problems with that. I don't. It's unfortunate that the Xbox as a console loses exclusives. But like I said before, I think that in the end, if you're a PC gamer and you were never going to get an Xbox anyway, you now have the option to play those games on PC. And if you're a console gamer, you have a lot to look forward to as a console gamer. With the idea of upgradable consoles, games being scalable, forward and backward compatibility, and the options to have all of your library be with you at all times. Every game that you've ever downloaded, every app you've ever downloaded, everything you've ever had to be automatically put on the upgraded console, not having to worry about a new operating system, not having to worry about when is the next exclusive going to come out, or when are we going to stop worrying about last generation. Having an upgradable console mid-gen that constantly has close to the latest tech, or maybe technology that's better than what's in the last console and still be within the same install base. Cloud technology, DirectX 12. Microsoft's doing a lot of things. Network play, cross play. I just don't see how people just blow off Microsoft. There's just so much. There's so much. No one is like making a list. The only thing I get from the competition, and it's absolutely no disrespect, as I love both Nintendo and Sony. I do. I really appreciate what they bring to the table. I really like a lot of their games. I'm not a hater. I'm not some type of X-bot that just hates on other consoles. For what? What does that do for the industry? What does that do for innovating new games and new technology? What does that do for developers? It does nothing for me to hate on those consoles and want them to fail like some other people do. It makes no sense at all. However, I prefer Xbox. I prefer the direction they're going. I prefer the OS, and I prefer the community. I just do. There's no disrespect to anybody else. That's just my opinion and how I feel. So yeah, I would like to see those companies succeed. Would I like to see Microsoft be the best in the world? Absolutely. I think they're the best in the world, in my opinion, right now. Some people don't. Some people are sleeping. But that's why I'm here, to wake you guys up and make you recognize that everything isn't doom and gloom. Technology moves forward. Everything is going to be digital soon. That's just the future. If you're not recognizing it, you're being blind to the situation. You really are. That is the future of video games. The physical disc, the physical medium may still exist, but it's getting smaller and smaller. The internet infrastructure is getting bigger and broader. It's reaching more places. It's becoming cheaper to get. Like it just, in 5 years, you'll be able to get 100 megs per second for like $50. Seriously, like that's how fast internet is moving. And one of the things, before I head out, I want to touch on was cloud and how it works. They're trying to get 5 megabytes per second to use cloud. Think about that. 5. Most people on most internet services, at least in the United States, start at about 15. That's like the minimum. It's like 15. It's rare that you get some people who have anything below 10. But even if you had 10, you would still be able to run Crackdown's multiplayer, because they're trying to hit between 3 to 5 megabytes per second just to be able to use cloud compute. That's an amazing feat. Now, me personally, I have 75 over 75 up down from Verizon. So I had no problem with internet. I was doing 100 over 100, but I felt I was overpaying. I just wasn't hitting the 100 over 100 mark. So, game wise, technology wise, everything moves forward. Microsoft is moving forward. The games are moving forward. The future is constantly changing. And these 3 companies are doing things in their own style and in their own way with their own ecosystems. People are just only seeing PC, PC, PC. Is why I keep saying Microsoft needs to stop saying this is coming to PC and say it's coming to Windows 10. Because when you think of PC, you don't think of Xbox. You think of an open multi-platform platform. That's what you think of. But when you say Windows 10, that changes everything. You're saying Windows 10 means I need Windows 10. I have to go to the Windows 10 store. This is all being money that I'm giving back to Microsoft in the Xbox division. That goes back into the division for us console gamers to get new games. So, I mean, you just have to look at it for what it is, recognize what it is, and stop letting the fanboys and the terrible media that's out there and the nonsense that's out there constantly clog your ears, because people out there have an agenda. People out there are getting paid for certain things, certain advertisements. And I hate to say that, but it's the truth. And Tick Podcast is always here to be a light in the dark, man. That's what we do. That's why we exist. That's why you love us. So again, I appreciate everyone for coming on the show, checking us out, having a conversation. I'll be back later in the week with a Tick Team podcast. And at the end of the month, we will have an interview for Nevermind, which is a horror game at the GDC, which I believe we'll be talking about very soon. You guys will be interested in hearing more about that. So thanks, man, for keeping it locked here on Tick Podcast. You guys are the best fans in the world. I'm your host, KLWR, the last son of Planet Xbox, and I am off this planet. Peace.